Right now, as you're listening to this, you are being robbed. A chunk of everything your hard work creates is being stolen from you, and it's a system called capitalism that's robbing you. Every day when you check into work for your boss, you are being taken advantage of and stolen from. You are being deprived of the full value of what you contribute. Let me break it down. A capitalist isn't someone in a top hat burning library books to run a misery factory. Anyone who puts forward capital, money, to set workers in motion becomes thereby a capitalist. That is to say, they're acting as a capitalist. And what's their goal? People will tell you it's innovation or competition, but down the real world, it's pretty simple. Capitalists have one goal.
Would you switch to lab-grown meat? Yes, 100%. As long as it tastes the same.
And that goal is to turn a profit. Pursuing profits to accumulate money is just how capitalism works. That's the nature of the beast. It's the single impulse of capitalism. That doesn't make capitalists personally greedy, though some might be. We're not even talking about good or evil here. Capitalists need to maximize profit to the exclusion of all other considerations, or they'll get eaten up by capitalists who are smarter or more ruthless than them. That's the jungle law of the market. So capitalists need profit to survive. But where does this profit come from? And that's where you come in. Literally, profit comes from you. Here's a little thought experiment. Meet Harold. Harold has a chain of buildings full of kitchens, full of ingredients. But Harold doesn't know how to make a burger himself. How does Harold get someone to make enough burgers that he can sell them and turn up profit? It's not a trick.
I want to tell you now that I will never stop bugging about how 32% is more important than 1%. No, I think 1% of human life is important, but the 32% of animals overall is only as important as how it impacts human life. You care about 32% of animals being extinct because of how dangerous the consequences are of on the fragile ecosystems, which then end up killing human beings. But regardless, you're not going to be able to do that because I'm banning you.
Quick question. He pays you because you know how to make really good burgers.
And also, everybody who says like, oh, I can't believe you banned him, need to be reminded that I will go down 35-minute stun locks on veganism.
The money he uses to pay you is what we call capital. That's money used to set production into motion. Let's say Harold spent $1,000 buying all the ingredients in the restaurant. And after you worked for a few weeks there, turning the ingredients into burgers, they brought in $3,000. Not bad. You added $2,000 worth of value to the ingredients. But wait, you don't get all the money, because Harold now has $3,000 on his hands. $1,000 of that is just making up for the cost of the ingredients. And if you were paid for the full value of your labor, you'd be making $2,000. But then Harold would only be breaking even on the burgers, and he needs to make a profit in order to survive. So Harold does not pay you for the full value of your labor. Maybe he pays you just $1,000 of the value you produced. Maybe he pays you $1,500. No matter what, you've been stolen from. You spent more of your labor than you were compensated for. But here's the dirty truth. The story doesn't end with you and Harold. This process plays out across your city or town, your state, the country, the entire world. The rich get richer, and the little guy barely gets by. We call the process, a boss is stealing from you, exploitation. We don't mean that in an emotional sense about how we feel about it, but something that's actually a documented economic phenomenon. The gap between how much the worker produces and how much they get paid. Exploitation is a universal feature of capitalist economies, and it never ends. The system requires more and more
Thanks for letting us know that you're logging off for the night. Regardless of why he rationalizes caring about the environment, he still cares about climate change and climate degradation more than right-wingers. More than left-wingers, too. Just not vegans, I guess. Damn it, where's the other fucking guy who said... Literally anyone who says no to lab-grown meat is who the vegans should actually be going after. I missed the guy in there that said, like, the dude wouldn't be able to know how to make a burger. The labor theory of value is cringe. It's not really rooted in empirical fact. No, you're right. Totally. Unlike what? The marginal utility theory, which is totally rooted within empirical fact. Thank you for describing to me how, our current popular economic understanding of value is totally rooted within empirical fact, right? No, it's not. So shut the fuck up. It's literally trying to look at something that is not qualitative from a qualitative point of view.
Exploitation, paying workers less, making them work more, or making them more productive without increasing their wages. When you see in the newspaper that a corporation's recording record profits, that is what they are doing. Your hard work is producing more value, but you're not getting enough compensation in return. There are tens of thousands of Harolds out there, but billions of people just like you. You and Harold are two different types of people. You belong to two different classes. There's a capitalist who owns the means to produce goods and services, and there's the workers who only have their own labor to survive on. The capitalists appropriate the value that the workers' labor creates and keep it for themselves. And you are not immune from it. At any job you work at, the condition of your employment is that you produce more by your labor than you get paid. So in the capitalist system, no one is paid what they're worth. All profit is value extraction, and that means that all profit is theft from you. This is Richard Wolff, professor of economics at the New School University for the Gravel Institute.
Have you ever met Richard Wolff? No. Don't you see how vegans would be pissed off by you conflating it with eco-fascism? What? I don't think vegans are... What? Okay, dumb question, but I didn't get the part where he says Harold generated all 2K worth of profits without the initial investment, 1K worth of ingredients. Harold wouldn't be able to make the burgers, right? And coming up with the idea of making burgers, organizing, hiring labor, etc., should mean that the CEO should be compensated. Not the CEO, but whoever is putting it together. Yes, it's an oversimplified analysis of how value is added by labor. Of course, not every single part of the fucking $2,000 just added directly by the worker itself. No one is pointing a gun at your head, forcing you to work for someone. Yeah, just don't work and then fucking die, which is, kind of like putting a gun to your head, but with extra steps. I don't fault this person for having a fucking moronic brainworm take like that, because that's literally how idiotic Republicans operate. And that's precisely how they brainwash people. This dude was trying to Was this the dude you were trying to snipe earlier? No. The employee wouldn't have a job without the capital the boss put into the business and the risk they took. Again, a hilarious notion, as though the fucking employee is not taking risk. The employee could be fired at will. The employee assumes way more risk than the fucking boss ever does. The only difference is the boss already has capital before the employee does, or at least has a means to acquire more capital because he has some asset that he could put up. That's the only difference. Whenever people say most businesses fail, they fail to recognize that, okay, well, so do those fucking employees in those businesses. And when the business fails, society's created fail-safes for those who own businesses. And those fail-safes are way better than the fucking, than the protective measures that you have for workers who are losing their goddamn jobs. It only seems like a much larger fall because you're a boss and you're rich and you're losing all your wealth all of a sudden and now you're poor. Whereas the drop off from being a fucking worker to being a poor person without a job is much smaller. So you assume that it's like not as big as a problem. Ultimately, though, it doesn't matter. Because without workers, you have nothing. You have no product. You have absolutely nothing. You have the same selfish moral stance for humans too as you have for other animals, as other humans are as good as they are beneficial to you. No, I just think that people have, first of all, I get really annoyed when people have a transactional approach to every single fucking interaction amongst humans. I shit on that all the time. But having said that, I also think it's fucking dumb when people assume that, like, oh wow, you should be gracious and grateful that your fucking jobs provider gave you a fucking job. It's like, no. No, you as a worker should know your worth. You are providing value to that business. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a job. Stop acting like, our bosses are magnanimous for hiring us. But again, the labor theory of value does not explain prices, bro. Okay, because value isn't the same as fucking prices. And again, value is a completely subjective concept that both of the two different theories that I just mentioned to you try to identify. Is this politics for the next 4 years? Sleeper. Also, businesses fail because they're competing in a market share of a stabilized sector. They would only succeed together if the demand keep up with the increased supply. How does it work within the constructs of family-owned, ran small business where the owner has the most to lose? The owner has more to lose, but that doesn't mean that the worker is not assuming risk when they're taking on a job. And I am saying that we have set in fail-safes that help the owner more than we do the workers. We don't care about the workers. But the labor theory of value doesn't even talk about the risk. It talks about what your labor, how much your labor contributes to value. Yeah, the irony, of course, is the owner's risk is literally becoming a worker, by the way. Like, the owner assumes the risk of, like, having to be forced back into the worker class. That's the fucking owner's risk there. I've actually literally never thought about it that way. Holy shit. You are right. I have never in all of my years thought about it that way. God damn. You just fucking blew my mind, dude. That was spot on. I'm an owner worker at the moment trying to become an owner exploiter. That doesn't mean that employees shouldn't receive any money at all. Yes, labor should receive more, way more than they are now, but the employees should also receive pay. After all, the product value is not 100% made by labor. Okay, so I don't think it's exact, for the record. And I think that if you were to try to analyze exactly how much your labor adds on, that would be laborious in and of itself. And it would be a task that's almost impossible to discern. There are people who try to analyze exactly how much your labor, like exactly how much value your labor provides. They try to create math equations to figure this number out, to calculate it. I think it's a silly endeavor. Okay? Except corporations do calculate it when they realize that corporations calculate it when they try to make sure that you know, you're fireable or not fireable. Having said that, though, yeah, it's difficult because value is partially subjective, no matter which theory you try to apply when you're analyzing value. But the way you go around that, or the way you can go around that, is at the very least offer a base level of material equality to all people. Okay? But not only that, but the other way is by creating a system within your workplace where there's at least a democratic means to determine what you do with the profits that you are all participating in the creation of. Can you start downloading videos of you? It's in his new Twitter Jojo Sivo video. What do you mean he's downloading videos of me? What? Any chance you could suggest any reading material that help you get a better understanding of history? But aren't owners working too? Shouldn't they be paid fairly? Yes. Like, this is another fucking brain dead take. Like, guys, no one is saying owners deserve nothing. Like, why is it that whenever I talk about this sort of thing, whenever I talk about, like, for example, cooperative corporations or something, people's immediate reaction is like, oh, what, you want the janitor to be the CEO? And it's like, no, you have to remove yourself from the pre-existing hierarchical authoritarian structure within corporations and try to reimagine a situation in which at least the janitor has a say rather than no say whatsoever. There is no one person top-down power structure. The video said that the owner steals from labor. Yes. Stealing your labor value in the form of profits. Okay? That doesn't mean the owner should make $0. And Richard Wolff does not believe that the owner should make $0. Richard Wolff is an advocate for anarcho-syndicalism, which means, and he's a big fucking Mondragon fanboy, which means he believes that every single person, every single worker in the corporation should have a say in what gets done with the profits. In some quarters, you can decide to spend additional money and additional profits on engaging in a marketing initiative. Maybe you can invest in automation. Maybe you could democratically vote to give the a chunk of the percentages, a chunk of the percentage of the profit to the CEO if you want. It's like the quota requirement in Germany for X amount of employees to be on the boards of companies after they reach a certain size, part of the reunification stuff. Yup. Exactly. No more company back to the barter system? No. that's not, no one is advocating for anarcho-primitivist reorganization, or maybe some people are, but most people that say that are memeing. A CEO is easily replaceable. The workers can elect the person that can occupy that role. It's not fundamentally different from companies now. The only difference is the workers occupy the role of the stockholders that own the company. Yes. Except if you ever fucking told a neoliberal that, their brain would fucking explode out of the top of their dome, because there is a part of the neoliberal brain, neoliberal phrenology. There's a part of the neoliberal brain that literally believes that the CEO offers a unique value proposition that virtually no other human being can provide. And that, like, the reason why CEO pay is so high is because it's competitive, because there's a lot of demand for the best CEOs possible. And that if you were to try to explain to them that, like, yeah, no, the company should govern itself, and the CEO should not be elected by capital owners that have no interest and have no stakes outside of, like, their shares in the corporation, but instead by their true stakeholders in the form of workers, alongside, of course, those who have invested into the corporation itself. They're like, no, absolutely not. You're wrong. That would be the worst CEO possible. HasanAbi's a boomer and he believes in eugenics. Wow. Okay, that's a joke. I don't think that there is, like, a neoliberal skull. That was, I'm obviously joking. The value proposition of a CEO is that they enlarge profit margins to their maximum. That's not always bad. No, that's... CEOs gained 200%, 250% productivity in the last 10 years. That's why they should be paid more. Okay, brother. I can't wait for the new initiative to put cameras in the fucking bathroom inside of the toilet bowl, so the CEO knows if I'm jerking off at work, implying that, like, now the CEO's productivity has increased another tenfold. I don't know if that person is joking or not. Are you saying that anyone can be a CEO? You, of all people, know how brain dead most humans are? Yeah. And CEOs are a part of most humans. So no, there is no defining characteristic within a CEO that makes a CEO, for some fucking weird reason, more qualified to run a corporation than anyone else. CEOs are just as stupid as managers, and managers are just as stupid as the workers themselves. I realize that, but a lot of people, for some fucking weird reason, don't. And not only that, but also on top of that, how is that any different than saying you deserve to be king because God told me that you're a king? God damn, dude. Liberal capitalist dogma is so fucking ingrained in our civilization that, like, the lie of meritocracy is just so fucking deeply ingrained that you are no different than a peasant who says that, of course, the monarch is supposed to be the monarch. He's the son of God. Because some watery bint lobbed the scimitar at me, that's why I should be king. CEO worship is like econ monarchism? Yeah. The thing is, even now, CEOs and investors are diametrically opposed. Investors look for long-term wealth increase, while CEOs look for short-term profits, so they get a bigger bonus, which can be damaging. That is also true. How do you explain overpaid employees when owner is in loss and worker earns more income than they create for a capitalist? Is this reverse worker exploitation? What? Overpaid employees when the owner is in loss and worker earns more income than they create for a capitalist? Profit incentive weeds out bad business from good business. Socialism doesn't have that. What? Are you telling me that there's a business out there that's like operating at a loss currently, but even in that situation, the worker is getting paid more than they create? Like, what? I mean, I guess in that made up scenario, that would be unique. But like, just because a business is not profitable yet doesn't mean that the worker's not creating value. Like, are you guys trying to tell me that like those who own Uber, because Uber is not currently profitable, those who have ownership stakes in Uber don't make money or something? Like what? Or like the Uber CEOs don't make money right now? Is that what you're trying to say? Whereas like the Uber drivers are literally making millions or something? What are you saying? That's a corporation that is not profitable, right? Or not profitable yet. Oh, wait, forgot. Uber doesn't have workers. Shouldn't the owner have utilities in the same ratio as the cost of investment compared to the workers until at least the initial cost is recuperated and later then become a cooperative? That's one way of doing it, but the initial cost is never recuperated because the way you recuperate the initial cost is off of what you determine the value of someone's labor is. And if you determine someone's value of labor by what you decide their wages are, then it's never happening. We're talking about small business people like my parents who are living off their savings, but still they're paying our employees above minimum wage. We're exploiting them regardless, but that's just an example. But that's a great example because your parents are still exploiting them with the hopes that eventually they can create more value as well. And right now, like your parents don't run a charity. That's what that is. Okay, that example is a charity. It's not a business. Like an example in which the person is just giving back into the business more than they are taking out of it is not a business. It's a charity. And it has a different designation, a non-taxable status too. Is a 501c3. Value of a commodity is determined by the total quantity of labor contained in it. But part of that quantity of labor is realized in a value of which an equivalent has been paid in the form of wages. Part of it is realized in a value for which no equivalent has been paid. Should income and wealth be capped at a certain point? I personally think that a society that has a maximum wealth would be a better one. Legit. $999 million. You're asking the owner, inventor of a product to relinquish control of his or her product and have it become a democratic process on how profits get handled. Make no sense. Makes no sense. Why then would anyone invent or invest in anything? Here's a great example. The ecosystem of editors I have currently is a fantastic example of this. Okay? A fantastic example. Now, that is a mutually beneficial relationship. Why is that a mutually beneficial relationship? Because you have a bunch of people in this community that clip videos exactly like this from this stream itself. This is my labor. This is like the risk I've assumed, and that risk is the fact that I left my job to, be able to churn out 12 hours of fucking content, no matter how much you call it a sleeper or whatever. Now, the beautiful relationship that we have is that in a normal situation, people would gatekeep their product, and they would say, "Oh, I'm fucking copywriting this. You cannot touch it. I will only let you edit this if, you pay me for it." Because ultimately, like, that's the capital. That is the wood that person is making a chair out of. His value is the labor that he puts in. The added value is the labor that he puts in the form of creating the daily dose of HasanAbi, or HasanAbi highlights, HasanAbi clips, all these other YouTube channels that are out there. That requires additional labor. So what they end up doing is adding their own labor to generate value. That value that they generate for themselves. This is a mutually beneficial relationship for someone like me. I could be making more money off of those clip channels, or I could allow them to exist in the way that they do, and even change the outcome of the content that I create here sometimes by literally sending me videos to watch. Okay? And this way, there's a mutually beneficial relationship where their clip channels that grow, that make them money, end up giving me free marketing. You get it? Nothing wrong with what they're doing. I like watching them. I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong. You understand? Anecdote Andy? I mean, I'm giving you exactly how a mutually beneficial relationship can work.